A Middle East truce, talk of war in Cuba, and a global energy crisis. The world is on edge, and we're breaking down the power shifts changing everything right now. Welcome to Zenith Global News, your trusted window to the world. From across the world, these are today's top stories. A fragile, temporary ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon has officially gone into effect. Is Venezuela finally coming in from the cold? After a 7-year total blackout, is the U.S. about to invade Cuba? Woe to those who manipulate religion for military gain. Nearly 700 drones, dozens of missiles, and a 12-year-old child who never woke up. The days when Germans dictated to Jews where they can live are over. Power generation or a path to the bomb. The Strait of Hormuz is closing, and India's energy lifeline is under fire. Now, let's dive into the details of today's biggest stories.
10-day ceasefire between Israel-Lebanon goes into effect. The Middle East is holding its breath. A fragile, temporary ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon has officially gone into effect, but the silence on the ground is anything but peaceful. While the agreement aims to halt cross-border violence, the situation remains incredibly volatile. Hezbollah has declared its commitment depends entirely on Israel ceasing all hostilities, while the U.S. State Department insists Lebanon has pledged to finally curb the militant group's operations. The reality on the ground tells a chaotic story. Fighting flared right up until the final deadline, with a critical bridge in southern Lebanon destroyed, and reports of gunfire echoing in Beirut suburbs. This crisis extends far beyond the border. President Trump is claiming credit for the breakthrough, even as he publicly clashes with Pope Leo XIV over the nasty reality of the Iranian threat. Meanwhile, Iran views this truce as part of a wider, Pakistani-mediated deal with Washington to pause the regional war. With U.S. forces on high alert to restart combat if these agreements fail, the world is watching to see if this peace can actually hold, or if the region is simply catching its breath before the next escalation. IMF World Bank restore relations with Venezuela. Is Venezuela finally coming in from the cold? After a 7-year total blackout, the IMF and World Bank have officially resumed formal engagement with Venezuela, marking a massive shift in the global financial landscape. In a move that effectively legitimizes the current interim government, the IMF polled its members and confirmed that it now recognizes acting President Delcy Rodriguez as the nation's leader. This decision ends a diplomatic deadlock that began in 2019 and paves the way for a full economic assessment of the crisis-stricken country. Why does this matter? Billions on the line. This normalization could unlock billions in frozen special drawing rights. Investor confidence. It signals to private investors that Venezuela is open for business again. The U.S. connection. Following the January ousting of Nicolas Maduro, the Trump administration has been instrumental in this pivot, as Washington eyes expansion into Venezuela's massive oil and mining sectors. Rodriguez hailed the move as a very important step for the economy, specifically thanking the U.S. for brokering the deal. With the world's largest oil reserves potentially back on the table, this financial re-entry could change everything. Cuban president vows defense of island if U.S. invades. Is the U.S. about to invade Cuba? Tensions are at a boiling point as Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel just issued a stark warning to the United States. If a military confrontation is unavoidable, Cuba is ready to fight and win. Following the shocking U.S. arrest of Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro and the recent outbreak of war with Iran, President Trump has explicitly threatened that Cuba is next. The island is already reeling from a crushing U.S. naval blockade that has choked off gas and oil supplies, plunging the entire nation into massive, crippling blackouts. Speaking on the 65th anniversary of the failed Bay of Pigs invasion, Díaz-Canel fired back at American rhetoric. Rejecting claims of collapse, he powerfully declared, "Cuba is not a failed state. Cuba is a besieged state, facing intense economic and energy warfare. While secret talks are reportedly underway to de-escalate the crisis, the nearly 70-year-old trade embargo remains firmly in place. With U.S. warships patrolling the Caribbean and political rhetoric reaching a fever pitch, the world is holding its breath. Pope Leo excoriates tyrants waging war instead of peace. Those are the explosive words of Pope Leo XIV, who just launched a blistering attack on global tyrants, and it is putting him on a direct collision course with U.S. President Donald Trump. Currently on a high-stakes tour of Cameroon, the pontiff isn't holding back. Standing in Bamenda, the epicenter of a brutal, decade-long civil conflict that has claimed over 6,000 lives, Pope Leo condemned leaders who exploit the Earth's resources just to fund endless cycles of death and destabilization. But his message goes far beyond Africa's borders. The Pope's fierce denunciation of using God's name to justify violence is a direct, unmistakable rebuke to Washington. With the Pentagon recently attempting to brand military operations in Iran as a holy war, the Vatican is pushing back hard. As local church leaders mourn a land that has drunk the blood of its children, the Pope's warning is clear: true believers are peacemakers, not warmongers. Is the head of the Catholic Church becoming the ultimate obstacle to America's war machine? Russian barrage kills several across Ukraine. Last night, Ukraine endured its most devastating aerial barrage in weeks as Russia launched a massive retaliatory strike across Kyiv, Odessa, and Dnipro. The numbers are staggering: 16 dead, dozens injured, and a trail of burning residential blocks. In the capital alone, emergency crews pulled a mother and child from the wreckage of a central district, while in Odessa, the death toll continues to climb. Russia's defense ministry claims this is revenge for strikes on their oil refineries, but the reality on the ground is a nightmare of civilian casualties. This latest horror comes at a critical moment, just hours after President Zelensky returned from a whirlwind European tour, pleading for the air defense systems needed to stop this exact slaughter. As the smoke clears and rescue teams dig through the debris, the message from Kyiv is desperate. Promises of aid mean nothing if they don't arrive on time. Germany, Israel see growing divide after criticism of MERS. These are the chilling words of Israeli Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich, aimed directly at German Chancellor Friedrich Merz. What started as a routine diplomatic call has exploded into a high-stakes verbal war, threatening the special relationship between these two historic allies. The spark? Chancellor Merz issued a firm warning against the annexation of the West Bank. Smotrich, the grandson of Holocaust survivors, fired back on the eve of Holocaust Remembrance Day, accusing Germany of trying to force Jews into ghettos once again. While Israel's own ambassador to Berlin is calling the chancellor a great friend and slamming his own minister's rhetoric as a distortion of history, the damage is done. From frozen government consultations to heated debates over arms exports and human rights, the rift between Berlin and Jerusalem is widening at a terrifying pace. Iran's nuclear ambitions, unrealistic or dishonest? Tehran claims its nuclear program is strictly for energy security, but the math just doesn't add up. Expert analysis reveals a staggering reality. Iran is spending billions to generate just 1% of its electricity, a feat that could be achieved far cheaper with its massive natural gas reserves. The numbers are haunting. The Bushehr plant took 20 years to build and cost up to 10 times its original estimate. Even worse, the heavy water and enrichment facilities have triggered international sanctions, costing the Iranian economy an estimated $3 trillion. If this were truly about keeping the lights on, why enrich uranium to 60%, a level with no credible civilian use? Why mine low-grade uranium in water-starved deserts when importing fuel is the global standard for efficiency? Analysts are calling the program economically irrational. From a benefit-cost perspective, the investment yields almost nothing for the Iranian people, while the geopolitical risks continue to skyrocket. Is this a massive engineering failure or a calculated trillion-dollar smokescreen for a weapons program? We're following the money and the molecules to find the truth. India explores new sources of LNG amid West Asia supply disruptions. A massive military escalation in West Asia has just triggered a global gas crisis, and India, which relies on the region for nearly 60% of its LNG, is standing at a breaking point. With supply lines from Qatar effectively severed, New Delhi has been forced to invoke emergency powers under the Essential Commodities Act to prevent a total industrial collapse. But the government isn't just sitting back. In a daring strategic pivot, India has launched a worldwide hunt for gas, bypassing the Gulf to secure record-breaking shipments from the US, Australia, and Nigeria. From diverting gas to save the nation's food supply to fast-tracking the creation of strategic LNG reserves, the race to secure India's energy future is officially on. While industrial sectors face staggering 40% supply cuts, a new map of global energy is being drawn in real time. Can India build a Hormuz-proof energy shield before the lights go out, or is the world's fastest-growing economy about to hit a wall?
If you value real, balanced reporting from across the globe, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Turn on notifications so you never miss the stories that matter. Stay informed. Stay aware. Stay ahead. We'll see you in the next update, only on Zenith Global News.